So for this project, you've chosen to do a surreal landscape. Surreal meaning that not only is it a good landscape, as in it has the overlapping planes and everything that we have in the other one. So it has a foreground, middle ground, background. They overlap, they're crisscrossing, they're not parallel. Not only is it a good landscape, not only is it colored well, but it also has surreal elements. So let's talk about what that is. So a surreal element is something that isn't based in reality. Or maybe it's two objects that don't really belong together, but you've managed to put them together. What I'm going to show you right now is a few examples of some surreal landscapes. Right here is our first surreal landscape. You can see with this one that you've got the same things that we were looking for in a good landscape. You've got your foreground right here, you've got your middle ground right here, you've got your background right here. Are things overlapping? This is overlapping with this one. They're not all parallel. So this is a good landscape, and it's also got these surreal elements. Deer don't really have harps for their antlers. Elephants aren't made of tubas. So you can see that while it still has the foreground here, and it's got the middle ground here, and it's got the background way in the back, it still has these surreal elements. So you've got a foreground, middle ground, background, and you're adding things that are just a little bit off. Okay, this last one is another surreal painting. If you look right here, this one doesn't have your traditional foreground, middle ground, background as it's easy to see, but there is a foreground and middle ground and background. You can see you've got these boats here, and they're kind of coming up to this woman who's made in a dress, but she is also made of the ocean. So again, using the blue and everything like that, let's talk about what our foreground, middle ground, and background elements are. So really, our foreground element is her. So here's your foreground. I would even argue that maybe there is another foreground element, which is this boat right here, but that wouldn't be as interesting. So here we've got your foreground right here. Now doing it in red, here's our middle ground. Our middle ground is this right here, and you even got a little bit of it over here. So that would be our middle ground. And then our background is really hard to see because of all the clouds, but if you look really closely, there is a lighthouse way over here in the back. So right back here, this is our background, kind of comes like that. And I would even say that these clouds coming up like that. So now this is another one, foreground, middle ground, and background. Does it have parallel planes? No, this one comes up, this one goes kind of this way, and then this one kind of diagonals, does a little bit of a U. Okay, so you've got foreground, middle ground, background. Do they overlap? Yes. Are they parallel? No. So those are all the things that I'm looking for in a good surreal landscape. Okay, everybody, so we've talked about what a landscape is. We've talked about everything that we need and what I'm looking for as far as what the planes are and what the different levels are and how to overlap. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put that into practice, and what am I exactly looking for in the final project. I would encourage you right now to look at the rubric. The rubric has been provided. You can pull it up. But if you don't, you can just look at what I have here. So let's just look at what it's going to be for an A and a B, and you can kind of see the two differences. The first is your layout. That's obviously going to be done in your sketch stage. So you're going to need a clear fore, middle, and background. I need to see that you understand objects are closer, objects are further middle away, and then we've got the background. I want to see a clear foreground, middle ground, and background. The other thing is objects that are closer are going to be bigger, and objects that get further away are going to be smaller. Okay? I don't want parallel planes, meaning instead of having a 1, 2, 3 in straight lines, foreground, middle ground, background, I want to see foreground goes this way, middle ground goes this way, background goes this way. I want to see a little bit more of an interesting group of planes, kind of like we have here, where you've got things that are zigzagging in and out, and you've got different levels of foreground, middle ground, background. The other thing about that is I want to see things overlap. Things in the front should overlap things in the back. I don't want to see just things in the front have their own little area, things in the middle have their own little area, and things in the background. The other thing that you're going to have to look at is the theme. What that means is I need a mixture of at least 4 objects and of 4 surreal objects and real objects. Objects are at different visual levels. Again, you've got small ones, medium ones, large ones. But also, if you look at it, you need 4 objects, surreal or not surreal. There needs to be a mixture. You just need 4 objects total. So like one can be a dog, one can be you could have 2 trees and a cloud that looks like a battleship. Okay? Like a battleship up in the air. So, you need to have those 2 things and to think about those 2 things when you are doing your sketch, which we're going to start in a few minutes. So now we've established what a landscape is, what I'm looking for in it. We're also establishing what a surreal landscape is and what we're looking for. Right here, these are some actual student ones. This one right here got an A. Now, if you look right here, you can see you've got your foreground element right here. Okay, foreground, it's tilted, it overlaps the other one, it's not parallel. You even got another foreground element right here in your little chili pepper. So you've got foreground with the tree, overlapping, not parallel. You've got your middle ground right here, and then you've got your background, which is the little yellow hills coming up in the back and the moon over here. So you've got a foreground, a middle ground, and background. This next one, another A project. You can see again, it's got your foreground elements right here. You've got your background, your middle ground right here, and then you've got your background with the sun in that. So you've got foreground, middle ground, background. These next 2 were ones that kind of missed the mark a little bit. If you look at this one, you're going to see that this one, while it's okay, it's got a foreground, middle ground, background. It doesn't exactly crisscross, it doesn't overlap very much, and it doesn't, it has parallel planes. You've got 1, 2, 3. It's very straight. It's kind of boring to look at. They did a nice job coloring it. They've got a foreground, middle ground, background, but I would have liked them to overlap a little bit more, and I would have liked them to crisscross a little bit more. I'm showing you this one right here because this is a classic thing that people get wrong all the time. You need to make sure that you start small here. The road would actually look like this. It would start, if this is my drawing right here, it would start right here, and then the road would get bigger as it got closer. Okay? Right now, they're not doing that. This one just has a line that stays the same all the way across. It should start small here and then get wider. Okay? I would take these trees and have some of the trees overlap it. Not to mention the fact there's no foreground. This is kind of just middle ground, background. They did okay coloring it, but there's no overlap, there's no parallel lines, and there's no foreground. So while they did a good job on some of the things, the overall layout of this one would have brought them down. They actually ended up getting a C on this project. In the sketch stage, you're going to just be drawing out some basic ideas on what you want to do for your final project. You don't have to make these perfect. Don't spend a lot of time on it. I cannot stress that enough. Don't spend a lot of time. If you spend too much time on it, you're going to get obsessed with it because what you're doing right now, this is not your final project. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to repeat this at the end of this. Use reference. What I mean by reference is right now, when you're done with this video, go on the internet and look up landscapes. You want to do a cityscape? Type in cityscape. You want to do a landscape? Do a landscape. You want to do a seascape? Type in seascape. Look at ideas. While I don't want you to copy an image directly, they're going to give you better ideas than anything you can come up with in your head. They're going to actually show you what a tree looks like. You want to put fences in it. What does a fence actually look like? Don't try and make it up. It's never going to look good. So, just right here, I've got here I'm going to do some sketches. I would recommend doing at least 2 of them. So, also, I'm going to do this in marker so that you can see it well. I would not do this in marker. Do it in pencil in case you make any mistakes. So I'm looking right now, and I'm going to just make a box that would approximately be the size of the paper that I'm going to be using. So now, just basing it off of this, what my sketch would end up looking like is something like this. I'd come down and here is my foreground. I have a little path, starts far in the back, small the further away we get, and then they get a little bit bigger. I've got a little tree back over here, it's like a dead tree, and then I have one tree, and then another tree overlapping it, and it's closer to me, so it would be bigger. So I've sketched out those 2 things. Now I've got my horizon line. So this right here is my foreground. This is now going to be my middle ground. In my middle ground, I put a river. Again, start small, get bigger. Start small, get bigger. All right. Now what I'm going to come over here is I'm going to put, okay, I've got mountain up in front, got another mountain over here, and then I've got mountains that are even further behind them and even further behind them, and then I put my sun right here. So you can see that this sketch is approximately what I have here. I've got a foreground, middle ground, background, foreground, middle ground, background. I don't have parallel lines and things are overlapping each other. Let's do a few other ones. Let's say I want to do a desert. So I can start out, okay, let's do this. Maybe I'm going to have like a desert road. It's going to come like this. Notice I went slanted here. Maybe we'll just have some mountains that come down like that. And then let's have a road. The road's going to start down here. It's going to come up over the hill. It's going to get even bigger over here. The little dots in the center. A little street sign with my overlap. Okay, put a few rocks over here. Maybe this will be a real extreme foreground element. I'll put a little scorpion up here. Okay, maybe get some cactuses way off in the distance. All right. So now, maybe I'll make my my scorpion's going to be over here. Put a little party hat on, and there's my surreal element. Okay, so I've got a foreground, middle ground, background. I've got my surreal element. I've got 4 objects. Let's try one more. Let's do a cityscape. Cityscape. I'm going to start here. Let's go with, I'm going to have like the edge of a car. So now I've got foreground, middle ground, background. Things are overlapping. There we go. I've got it. All right. So that's what I want you to start doing right now. Go on the internet. Find reference. Look at some actual ones. Don't copy them directly, but get some ideas. Here's the last part. Do not move on to the next step until you have your sketches okayed by me. You need to have these okayed because we eventually want to get you to this part.